All right. Yay. That's our
Yay.
forced opening catchphrase is yay. Uh,
Yay.
the opening disclaimer for The True Story of Comicsgate, the first episode, we plan to put the disclaimer in the front of every episode, so I guess maybe get used to hearing this if we do any more episodes, but um, everything we bring up in these episodes is independently verified by direct evidence and multiple unbiased sources. If any opinions or speculation are stated, they will be disclaimed as such beforehand. If you think something we state as fact is instead speculation or opinion, you have already been disproven before you have spoken, and your false statement will be discarded, as will all of your cope or rationalizations. Remember, kids, if you were correct, you would have already been us, which is why your favorite creators behind your backs say you should have listened to Shitty Webcomics. Um, if you want us to cover a specific event or story in Comicsgate, let us know through Curious Cat. Anonymous questions are always open. The link is below, but you can just go to curiouscat.me/Thomas Roy Loop. Um, if you want to encourage us to do more of these, or even discourage us, or for encourage us to do anything at all ever, patreon.com/smuglily is also linked below. So, episode 1, which is really just an introduction to the series. This is probably where most of the work is going to go in, and then it will be like, I don't feel like doing any more episodes. So this will be the
Hard work.
last
It,
episode.
it's hard work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work just to
Somebody
start.
offered, because that's the thing. Somebody offered to pay us to make one of these for $2 whole
Well,
dollars.
that's where this starts is I'm reading all of this from my notes is starting off, more people than I can remember have been asking or wanting us to do a documentary about Comicsgate, even though we're not documentarians. We've never bothered to keep
Documentarians
records.
or reporters,
Yeah,
investigative reporters, or fucking private eyes.
we're not historians. We never bothered to keep records or a log or any of that kind of
And
thing.
we shouldn't have to.
Yeah, yeah, it's sort of like thanking us. You'll never have to, even though you should. But
We should.
ever since the old days of our original comics review blog, which we started in 2011, and it was deplatformed by the SJWs years before Comicsgate ever existed. Um,
Before they even had the idea to try and combat
mhm.
the dreaded SJWs.
Although also after we had the ideas, we had all of the ideas, in fact, and most of them still Comicsgate has never even thought of to come up with. But uh, not to get too sidetracked. Anyways, ever since those times, though, in the past, we've always been too big picture to follow, all the individual piddling events and that kind of thing. Like, we wouldn't be like, remember when this thing happened, and then this thing happened, and this thing happened. We would be like, here's globinati, globo homo of everything. Everything all tied together. So every individual thing that would happen, we would point out, see, this proves the greater giant thing, the big picture. This is an example of the big picture, and we would try to get people to notice it. Every time we would post about something, we were always trying to get people to see how it tied in to all parts of culture and civilization and the zeitgeist and that kind of gay shit. But anyways, um, so we weren't interested so much in the story or the pieces and the every single tiny granule of bit, so much as the grand scheme. So remembering and keeping up with all the singular data points was something that we never bothered with in the original blog and also basically with Comicsgate.
It's
However,
something that I've started to understand only recently,
mm,
which is that my instincts are just absolutely right on.
yeah, even when I doubt them, I'm like, okay, wait a second. Here's my instinct, but is it really? And that's what it turns out is the
Can
people who are
this
always
really be
right always
possibly the
question their
truth?
instincts.
That can't really be true. It's
Hmm.
too stupid. But then it turns out to be true.
And yeah, there's like again, like I was saying, corroborating data or other people's, documentation of
Yeah,
things and
pulling in the
events.
facts from all sources. We
Yeah, other people are
review
like, oh,
all
somebody
sources.
found this, or I found this, or somebody said this. Here
These
it is,
people
and
will
it
try
proves
and
us right.
dismiss something that was said by the dreaded SJWs. And it's like, yeah, well, I don't trust them or believe them. I trust my own instincts. But so far, Comicsgate has been worse. Their track record has been worse than the fucking left, which is really sad.
It can also be quantified. That's again, that's not your opinion or observation. That's something that can actually objectively been quantified and in fact has been. We already had quantified and proven it on our previous we'll get into that in a little bit.
We'll get
Um
into all this stuff soon.
anyways, it's those individual singular data points that have been happening like daily or weekly every single day or at least every single week
Daily, weekly, yearly, until
until those dumb motherfuckers see clearly. But all of those things, every single last thing, we don't keep a record of, we don't keep track of. All the tweets, all the screen caps, we don't keep them. I've never have, I never would. But it's other people who wanted us to cover those, and we did cover a great deal of them. And again, we'll get into that in a second.
so part of the reason why we're doing this is because we know nobody else would do it right.
Yeah,
No one else will ever cover this correctly. If anyone ever tried to, you know they would do it wrong.
yeah, or they would just sort of self-obsess and turn it into themselves, which we don't do, and we're not
Kind of
going
like
to.
Vox Day. Vox Day's whole entire he wrote an entire book called SJWs Always Lie. It's supposed to be about how SJWs always lie. What's it actually about? It's about a Twitter spat he had.
Yeah, he had. It's about like
It's
a
the
little
gayest
blog war
thing.
that he had.
It's the gayest thing you will ever see.
It was about one specific one too. It wasn't about a bunch of them. It was about how he got
Which
mad
that
at
that's
some
not
SJW writer.
that's not a reason. That's not a reason to write a book.
Yeah, in fact, it's
Even if it was like just all the people on Twitter who fucking shit talked him and flamed him over Twitter
they had
about
a
stuff
flame
that
war.
they're engaging in flaming. But yeah, that is not a reason to write a book. He did even worse than that.
Yeah.
He was even worse than that because he did it just about one guy that he was angry about over the fucking internet.
Anyways, the because of all these other things, we will be speaking in the big picture for most of this documentary.
Strategic mode. It's strategic view. Kind
Yeah,
of like in what it was Homeworld, the
yeah,
strategic map or
yeah.
the censor, or rather it's a sensors map. But fucking the point is, it was the strategic view.
Yeah, and it
where
it
you
would show
go
you
into the whole
instead of
thing.
all the little dog fights with the fucking strike craft and stuff, it'll show you the overall of it, and that's what we're gonna just be
Of
covering is the
how it's going,
overall.
how the fight is going, how the battle is waging, the
Well,
war.
well, not in the current tense, of course, because it's pretty much all over at
Yeah,
this point. There are other things that could still be yet to happen, but the overall, which actually we had gone into in several old videos from like a year or two ago at this point, is that um, the failure of principles had already happened. And again, we'll get into all of that in the future, at least one future episode. But we'll be speaking in the big picture for most of this. And there are thousands of hours of live stream videos, thousands of tweets, posts, offhanded comments, screen caps that could all be combed through and presented. And if you want any of those, they're public, they're available. We don't have any of them. We don't keep them,
we
and I've
shouldn't
never
need to.
cared about keeping them.
We shouldn't need to. It's not our
Yeah, it's
responsibility. It's your people's responsibility to have been on this,
Mhm.
and you dropped the ball.
And
So
but
now
there are a lot of people.
we aren't going to be doing your work for you.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there who do have all of these things. And, if you want to if you want those, you can ask the people who know them, who do keep them. All we know is that we have observed them. We've seen people post them. We've seen people constantly bring them to our attention. And basically, the overall is it informed us of the events in and around Comicsgate, big and small. And so we won't be spending the time to dig through all of them, but anyone who wants to has been freely capable and available to do all of that for the
They've been free
for
to
the
do that for
previous
such a
few
long
years.
time. What have they been doing though?
Mm. But anyways, that's not what these videos are about. These
No.
videos
What?
are about what have they been doing. That question's been answered. We've answered that question. We're not going to dwell on those kinds of questions because they're irrelevant at this point. Um, Anyways, our previous channel, Shitty Webcomics Revived or SWC Revived, had a regular live documentation of pretty much all of the events in Comicsgate, as well as critical analysis, unbiased critical analysis of the actions and beliefs of Comicsgate, spanning from 2017 to late 2020. And that channel was banned when it was mass flagged by several members and supporters of Comicsgate. Again, this isn't my accusation or speculation. This is objective. It's quantifiable.
It's just history.
Yeah.
It's like It's like talking about World War One.
Yeah, it's
I'm not speculating here. I'm just telling you what happened.
as opposed to Battlefield 1. We could speculate what would happen if the Germans blew up this, if they developed a nuclear bomb and a hydrogen thing. It's like, okay.
If the Germans had developed a nuclear bomb during World War One, it's like no,
speculation intensifies.
Speculation intensifying the fuck out of this mission.
But anyways, yeah, our previous channel, which had not just a long history of the critical analysis, but it had people from Comicsgate coming on to essentially tell the truth of even what had been happening behind the scenes, a lot of unspoken stuff from people like Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini and Doug TenNapel, and the creators and also other supporters who had come around to even just sometimes leave comments on our videos saying, I was supporting Comicsgate, but this happened. And again, that's what a lot of other people's viewpoints, opinions, and all that stuff. And all that stuff was wiped out because we were mass flagged by not just members and supporters of Comicsgate, but including other creators in Comicsgate. And that's its own story.
The leaders of Comicsgate.
Yes.
They shouldn't have leaders, but they had leaders. And one of the jobs of those leaders was to mass flag and report people who were holding them to the standard they should be.
Also to command people to mass flag and report, which is, again, documented, objective, not speculation, all that stuff. That's, there's
stuff that's been talked about. We're not here for that.
As I believe perhaps Sam Hyde said, these people have names and addresses. They're there. It's all there's a public and open paper trail of it, and we will be getting into that. We'll be talking about that. But the thing is that as far as all the evidence, all that has been presented. So we'll just be discussing the fucking consequences of that, and everyone should have been digging up the evidence, and most people don't because they don't want to know and they don't want to see the evidence. So again, that's why we're just disclaiming this, and that's what this introduction is about, and that's what our videos are going to be about the history of Comicsgate. And the thing is that that our channel and its history all being banned, that's its own story, but that story also has already been told on our current channel as well as many other channels. And if you'd like to hear more about that, you can check out DA Talks or Vickyverse on YouTube. And I would like to say you could check out other videos and other channels, but most people refused to talk about it. There were a couple others, like DA Talks was on with Liam Gray, for example, on Nick Rekieta's channel, and we saw what came out of that, which was our people just sat around as our channel eventually got banned from what was admitted to be false flagging, but and DA was there to represent us and help defend us. But again, that story's told. That story's out in the public. There was a couple other people who did, I think,
We don't
short
have that
videos
much
about
time.
basically just about Liam Gray.
We don't have that much time.
Yeah, exactly. We can't, and again, that's why we're not going to be going into every last data point, is because we're not going to do a 1,000-hour documentary
Especially
about
for
all of it.
stuff
We're
that's
just going to
been
go
covered.
over the grand strokes of things.
We have covered this stuff very thoroughly already.
Yeah, previously we've
Listen
done
to our
deep dives. Our previous channel had several deep dives into a lot of
And we
very
have to
main
address this
and
stuff
very hilarious events.
because you already know people are being like, "Oh, how can you prove that?" We've proven
We
it
did.
already.
Yeah, we proved it
Several
in the
times.
past multiple times, to the point where other creators in Comicsgate came out and admitted that we were right. Or some of
Well, it's
them
to the
don't
point
really
now.
come out, of course, because
Anyone
they
who
kind of
still
can't.
claims these things is they're just an
There's
embarrassment.
there's a
to
major
themselves.
risk to some other people who had any involvement in Comicsgate to even come out and talk about this. And I've talked to them. Me and my brother both have talked to them, a lot of them in private, and they're like, "Yeah, I just don't want anything to do with it, because as soon as I do, then a lot of them are going to be bothering me and pestering me about stuff that I've already answered 100 times." So I understand why some of those people, who I won't name or I won't repeat their names, just don't want to be pestered with it. But there's stories out there and have been ignored. And so that's what most of this is, to just go over what has been proven to have happened. Um, but anyways, yeah, we bring this up because we bring up the history of our channel being banned because anyone in Comicsgate who refuses to talk about their responsibility in mass flagging, among other things, is covering up the facts, which remains one of the greatest flaws of the movement that ultimately led to its implosion. And that's also, you can't tell the story of Comicsgate without telling about why its principles failed, and that'll actually be probably the next episode. But um, there's one other important disclaimer, is that we're not going to waste time on your cope. We'll be dismissing all rationalizations sight unseen, because we
Yeah,
have
all
already dealt with them.
equivocations. I'm very tired of equivocation.
Yes,
These
the moral
people,
equivocation puzzle. It's sort of
I
like the
mean,
New
all
York
their
Times.
arguments are basically cope anyway.
Yes,
They don't have real arguments.
that's actually part of the history of Comicsgate, is that their arguments were all cope, and again, that's objectively proven.
Which I disapprove of.
Yeah,
If you're going to
I
be, if your
disapprove of that
argument is
on
going to
moral
be a cope,
levels, but also just in general.
just from an intellectual level,
Yeah,
on an intellectual level, I deny them their cope.
but also, I mean, there's a lot of other aspects to it too, like their then projection about it, about how they are like, well, actually, you guys, you're biased. Like,
Actually,
it's full of biased people accusing other people of bias that they don't have, or accusing us of bias that we don't have, because
very
we
projecting.
actually are some of the least biased people. And that's not my opinion. That's what other creators in Comicsgate who left the movement, or some of them who are still in the movement, have said about us. They've said we're some of the most unbiased and honest people. Doug
I could
TenNapel
be
said we're
wrong.
probably some of the only honest. We're probably some of the most on. Me and my brother are like the two most honest people on YouTube, according to Doug TenNapel. That's not
Maybe
our opinion.
the whole entire human race at this point.
That's at worst Doug's opinion, not mine. It's not my opinion. This is
Slam
what
dunk,
I'm saying.
slam dunk to Naple.
Who's getting pretty popular these days. That's nice, I guess.
And he also
Accumulation.
got fucking deplatformed.
Derp platform.
He's
Although he's
he's
back again,
finally
but yeah, he's starting to face what we had been facing for all these years. I
he's
guess now
finally
Doug
joined the
knows
club.
what it's like to be us a little bit, a
A
little
little
tiny
taste of
bit.
what it's like to be us. Finally
Anyways,
gotten some understanding of that.
but yeah, so well, we're dismissing all of Comicsgate's rationalizations. Any rationalizations, excuses, or cope are going to be just thrown in the garbage into the dustbin of history where they belonged, because they've already been refuted with hard evidence in the past, sometimes years ago, sometimes years previously. And I've seen that before, where Comicsgate, somebody in Comicsgate, a supporter or even another creator in Comicsgate, a major name or a complete nobody, will say, "Well, what about this?" And it's like, yeah, that was disproven in like 2018, so that was like 2 years earlier, and you're still making an argument that was debunked and disproven, debunking. I'm debunking. Um, but based on just old shit that had already happened. And it's like we had done so much where we go back and dig up, like, here's the thing from 2 years ago that disproves it. And it's like, after doing that thousands of times, eventually you realize that it's kind of a waste of time, because the other person you're telling this to is just going to ignore it. We've seen it from Comicsgate, where it's like, okay, here's the evidence, and Comicsgate's like, no, I don't want to know it, so I'm not going to. You see them break down or spiral. We've seen it so many times. It's very, very strange, very weird, as we have always said for many years now. Um, but anyways, it's just who we are, that we instinctively make people reduce themselves to flailing and wailing. Again, not our opinion. It's been quantified and observed by other independent sources who are on our side, and even not on our. Even people who hate us are like, wow, these guys make people fucking freak out. So it's fucking objectively quantified now. Um, but it's important to keep in mind that all of your rationalizations had already been objectively refuted by evidence in the past several years. And one of the most common rationalizations that we've seen with all sorts of nerds, but especially comic book nerds, is it's just a matter of opinion, or that's just your perception. And sometimes it's
You know
similar
what that,
to.
you know what those people are like? You know what Comicsgate is like? They're like the Flat Earthers, Flat Earth Society.
Yes. Where it doesn't matter what you present to them, they'll either say that there's like, well, actually, there's evidence of this, but it doesn't actually refute anything.
Actually,
And they talk like they'll go like,
they talk like Spurgers. They talk like stupid ass retarded Spurgers with a lisp.
why do they do that though? How come comic book fans do that all the time?
Genetically inferior.
Oh, it's genetic. I guess just genetic.
So it's worse than being genetic, because genetic is an excuse. They're worse than that.
Yes, that's right. Like that's the thing is when it comes to Christian, when people compare, say, Jawbreakers to Sonichu, the thing is that's like the guy who makes Sonichu, Christian, he has an excuse at least. Um, and again, that's not our opinion either. It is true. It is true.
Simply a fact.
But anyways, yeah. But one of the most common rationalizations I was just mentioning. Now, one of the most common ones is it's a matter of opinion, or that's just your perception of things, or
Those are, again, that is cope. Also, that shit is cope.
I mean,
It's cope behavior.
it's not just cope. They're snorting cope, but also it's not even words.
Cope
They're
them.
just going. Those aren't even words. How come they're not saying
Can't
words?
even. They can't even talk. They're so butt flustered.
Yes, I mean, genuinely though, like again, we've actually seen that where we've reduced people to not even being able to fucking to talk, and it's like, well, how come that? Like I've seen people like in Comicsgate, some of the major people like John Malin, his voice started shaking just because he was being questioned about like the principles of the movement. He was just
Which is
talking
not good.
like this, like unironically. Again, you can measure it with like a fucking plismograph or some shit. No, but seriously, you could actually objectively hear it, but you have to be capable of perceiving it. So it's not just a matter of perception; it's a matter of capability. And that's something that a lot of people simply don't have, but think that they have. And that leads to other people's rationalizations. That leads to people in Comicsgate, supporters of Comicsgate, making rationalizations because they don't know how to do anything else, because they don't have the capability of perception. If it was like a Fallout game, their perception would be at like 1 or 0. I
A
don't think
blind
you can have a perception of 0, actually.
a blind mole. No,
Yes.
they'd
The
be at
1 was the
0.
minimum.
If they were playing Fallout New Vegas, their perception would be at 0, which isn't possible.
It's
How
not
they
even possible, even in the delightful New Vegas. They're more like they would be more like in Frontier, that New Vegas
Yes,
mod that came out.
they would have if they were playing Fallout New Vegas Frontier, which is what they are playing.
Yes, that's what they're playing, and they're
That
also
is
just real jerks.
fine.
But
Just
perhaps that part, though. I guess it's just my opinion. That's just my perception. But the thing is, it's similar to something like saying Overwatch players are more thin-skinned than Team Fortress 2 players. You can claim that that's just a point of view or an observation or opinion, but not only do people just generally know that it's true, which is, not really important, but the important thing is that there are actual multiple objective quantifications of that you can sit through and dig through for days and days or weeks that reveal that the statement is a fact, that Overwatch players are indeed objectively and quantifiably more thin-skinned than Team Fortress 2
more
players.
more pathetic.
um, and you can, it sounds like something that's just an opinion, um, and you can make all sorts of different qualifications for it that may conflict, but ultimately it is still true. Not just that people know it's true, but that you can prove it. And even after that, if someone doesn't want to accept reality, they'll just dismiss all the facts anyways, which we have personally seen with Comicsgate. Not just with an example like that, but with stuff that can't even be argued with. And I've personally witnessed and documented multiple Comicsgate supporters who I could even name, who were presented with facts that they then ignored, only to act like the evidence that was presented was instead never presented. And then in several cases, they later recanted and admitted those things were true anyway.
Only when it was convenient for them.
Yeah, or after it was sort of too late. Anyways, so yes, even a point of view can be objectively quantified, but at the same time, we won't be sharing our point of view. We will be sharing events
That's
that
another thing.
even other
Also,
people were able to unbiased,
we actually did
unbiased
do
people
a
were
video
able
on
to
this. But these
qualify
people,
and
like,
prove.
it's just where people, when somebody gets upset by facts and then their rebuttal is that's just your opinion, these people don't know what an opinion is when they say that a fact is just your opinion.
Well, it's sort of like the the that old joke about Ethan um, thinking that gay ops, the definition of gay ops is the truth, because every time somebody told the truth about something that made him look bad, he would just say that people were doing gay ops. Um, that was a joke that Nasser
Primarily
even
because
thought was
we
funny.
also start saying that he was doing gay ops and he watches all of our videos.
Yeah, which, and also posts under a sock puppet on some of them. Well, he got caught on the previous channel, in fact. But that's a whole other story, and that is less quantifiable. But so we won't be getting into that as much. But it's funny. Anyways, it so we won't be sharing our point of view. We'll be sharing events that will be going through the big picture, just going over like this happened and this happened and this happened. At the same time, we won't be, or if we have an opinion, we'll preface it. But our opinion is based on quantified events as well, which is something almost no one who's ever lived is capable of, but we are. We as human beings have evolved beyond giving credence to your cope. As Ricky Roma once said, your excuses are your own. And everyone who doubts us is in no position to challenge our expertise. After all, the ordinary comics commoner may doubt us, but the professional creators who have left the movement or want nothing to do with it have already told us that they agree with us. And who would know better? The experts agree we know better.
Everyone who doubts us sucks cock by choice.
By choice. Why would you choose to that? Why would you choose to be gay? Why would you be from Greece? Anyways.
From Greece. It's gay.
So anyone willing to add the screenshots or clips, again, there's thousands of them, screenshots, clips, tweet links to tweets, archive links to tweets, which we've had a bunch of them. We've posted them. We've gone through them all in the past. We've shown them in previous videos. A lot of those videos are still up on our BitChute channel, Kawhi Thomas on BitChute, if you want to dig through multiple years of videos, which...
It's just easier to take our word for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't have to do any of that. Just take our word for it, because everything we're saying has something to back it up. That's what this is all about.
If you want to go watch videos by those other fucking boring-ass retards, go ahead and do that. You'll get nothing from it. It's kind of like following Jordan Pay.
Well, if you get something out of it, it will be accidental self-incrimination, which isn't good. I don't recommend anyone do that. We've never done that.
You people should admit to that if you're going to do that.
Yeah, but the thing is that we've seen people in Comicsgate incriminate themselves on shit, and then the other supporters of Comicsgate will turn a blind eye or act like they've never known anything about it, even though it's happened. Like the stream where Ethan spent hours lying about Nurkish, he deleted it, but we mirrored it. So, and that right there, it was even Doug TenNapel said that what we said about it was completely correct, and he later had to admit that he was just kind of sitting there listening to lies about something he knew wasn't true while he didn't do anything about it. And he said that he was wrong to do that, as a lot of people are. We've had a history of doing stuff like that too, where we just sit there and it's like, what is this about? What's happening? Because it's shocking sometimes. And I completely understand that. And that's why I told Doug TenNapel personally on one of our streams on our previous channel that was now banned and censored by Comicsgate. That's why I told him, it's still understandable. I didn't like it, but I understand why that happens sometimes, if it just comes right out of left field, you're like, what? And so, anyways, to wrap up, basically, this episode.
This is just the intro.
Yeah.
We have to.
This episode is just the introduction. Yes. The next episode is already planned for, and again, it's just going to be broad strokes. They may not even be as long as this episode. This episode's only this long so far. It's about a half hour so far. And I don't want these to even be an hour each. I want them to be about a half hour each. Well, they'll just go into things that happened or the why and the how. That's all we're going to be covering. That's all you really need to. Other people, anyone else willing to add screenshots or clips for context is more than welcome to, either to these videos, our videos, or to videos that they will make for themselves about Comicsgate or about whatever they want. Though one of the things we've noticed is that if you sit around waiting for other people to do it, it doesn't get done. So we have no interest in making a documentary. It was other people who had interest in us making a documentary about Comicsgate.
Put their money where their mouth was.
Yeah.
They were absolutely fucking spineless when it came to that.
There are some spineless jellyfish, naturally, who came from Comicsgate, who wanted us to be their fucking new Caesar Daddy or whatever the fuck.
Immediate red flag.
Because we were never going to be that for them, and we never are. What we're really doing this for is to speak for the people. We're speaking for the people who can't speak for themselves, which I can name them by name, and I know they don't want us really to bring them up in relation to the to this, but I also do know that they are glad that we're saying this because they've told us some of your if you're listening to this, some of your favorite creators have come to us in private and thanked us for making these videos. Whoever some of your favorite creators are, that's what has happened. That's what they say about you.
Had to come to us because the rest of you couldn't do
You
it.
can't hack it. Although I'll give some credit to Vicky and Da because they do some videos that I like listening to. I'll even give credit to Preston, even though Preston Poulter was oddly, weirdly, willingly suckered by a fucking scam artist from Australia.
He was warned of the scam ahead of time with, again, more verifiable evidence.
Yeah, well, it was almost like a fucking op where it was played against him to destroy his credibility, which it didn't work. But the thing is that then Preston doubled down after the guy was and again, we've already done like 3 or 4 videos about this. Um, Anyways, but wrapping up, we have no interest in making a documentary. It was other people who had interest in us making one for reasons most of them didn't actually understand. For some reason, they thought we had an archive of everything that ever happened in Comicsgate, when the reality is that we had little involvement in the movement, and I had already lost all interest in the movement in 2018 after I had personally witnessed its claimed principles objectively quantifiably fail, which will be described in detail in the next episode. So that wraps up this one. If you want to encourage us or discourage us, patreon.com/smuglele. It's linked below. If you have any points, if you remember a specific thing you do want us to bring up in an episode of this, you can leave it in the Curious Cat thing below. Anonymous submissions are always open. You can just mention, hey, what about, hey, can you guys mention this thing? And we'll probably go and mention it. It might not be a long, in-depth fucking drawing out, but we'll mention that it happened in upcoming episode. So yeah, that kind of wraps up this thing. I wasn't sure if there's any extra stuff to mention, but as far as we plan to stream these, but we don't have any set schedule for them. If you want to encourage us to do them more often or on a set schedule, fucking go to the Patreon and start paying us. Start fucking paying us. We've had people offer to pay us, but like an embarrassing small amount. Like, be like, why don't you guys post all the... And it's like, because I don't have any of that shit anymore.
Offered to fucking... He's like, I'll let you do the... I'll pay you to do a documentary. Okay, how much are you giving us? $2? What the fuck?
Yeah, why? Or even like if it's less, I told him
to do a documentary.
I told him we would do it for $10,000. And it was like, I don't really have that much money. It's like, then we won't do one.
Why did you ask then?
Yeah, exactly. It's like you gotta fucking. It's weird because clearly the movement, all of these people were like jilted members of the movement. That again, I never really had much interest in.
A movement of idiots.
And we've had a history, a slight history of it, but again, this isn't going to be about our history with it. It's going to be about the event. So it's not going to be how we had any interaction with it, as opposed to perhaps some other people's attempted future documentaries about Comicsgate. They're going to try and turn it into, how it's about them or their interests, or why they are like, oh, I think that. But the important thing is how things happened, why it happened. So the first things I plan on starting it with is the ideals and principles of Comicsgate will be the next episode, and then we'll start with Richard, because I was one of the I was subscribed to him before he even had like 10,000 subscribers. I think it was before he even had like 5,000 or something. It was in like mid 2017, I was subscribed to his channel and I watched every video of his because, like, hey, finally, and I can get into that when it comes to that episode. But
Where's Comic Liberty in this?
yeah,
Because
that's
that
the thing. Comic Liberty won't really have anything in this, like, except maybe it might be one of the last episodes where we might get into our involvement or our history. But the first thing that I would start with is do episodes about the actual events just of Comicsgate, which we technically have something to do with, but very little. Anyways, so that'll wrap up this episode. This episode ideally is longer than future episodes, but so future episodes should be shorter. Anyways, unlike, share, don't comment, unsubscribe, whatever. Um, again, links are in the below bar if you want to suggest things for us to talk about or to encourage us to do more timely episodes. Also, our Patreon has, if you pay $5 a month, you get access to secret videos and episodes about comics and that kind of stuff, and generally other like reviews that we can't post for obvious reasons. If you're not aware of the reasons, it's because Comicsgate has false flagged us for reviews to the point where it discredited the entire movement. And that's, again, not my opinion. That's something that even other people in Comicsgate were like, oh yeah, Comicsgate sort of doesn't hold to its principles, and people started turning on each other within the movement. If you haven't heard about that, you don't actually know anything about Comicsgate, but we will be getting into those things in the future. So if you want to get us to do more episodes, if you want to kick us in the ass to do more episodes, start putting your money where your mouth is for a change and donate to the old Patreon. And remember, don't blame SWC, and should have listened to SWC.